Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. And Michelle's going to be here as soon as she can find an internet connection that makes her happy and makes her computer happy, too. And in the meantime, we have a great guest for you today, a very, very intelligent, hardworking lady who's written a book. And I highly encourage you to get the book. And her name is Emily Erstad. And Emily, it's such a pleasure to have you. You're delightful young lady.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
It is so much fun, and I could read your bio, but I think that it would be much more fun if you give us your bio and all the things. But before we even begin, I do have to ask you one question. Sure. You have a master's degree in speech-language pathology. What the hell is that?
So we're formerly known, a lot of us go by speech therapists, right? But that's like our long title. So essentially we're part of the rehab team with physical therapy and occupational therapy. We partner with them and typically treat cognitive, memory, problem solving, swallowing, voice, you name it, anything behind communication. Typically that's associated with like a brain injury, stroke, neurodegenerative disorder. I always specialize in adults, so I speak to adults, but you'll also hear about us in the schools too. We do kids and articulation and language and all that.
I can't imagine. Right before my dad passed away, he had a stroke and he could no longer swallow. Mm-hmm. And he could no longer. I cannot just off me now. Just let me go. If I can't swallow, if I can't drink, if I can't, like water or
Sure.
whatever. I can't believe of anything that difficult.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's definitely interesting to partner with people that are in that stage of life and experiencing that kind of loss. It's been a blessing, but it's also very heavy to have to share those hard truths and also give them strategies to live the best quality of life they can with what they have at the moment. I think there's a lot of sadness, but there's also, there's a lot of positivity too. I've gotten to partner with people that have had head and neck cancer that couldn't eat, that finally eat and got back to their goals. I've been a part of people's journeys of Parkinson's disease, not being able to tell their wife they love them, to being able to be with them for that. But there's also been, hard things like telling somebody with ALS they're going to pass away. So it's definitely one of those careers where it's high highs, low lows, but you definitely get to witness the impact that you're having on the people you get to be with. So.
And you've worked in hospice and around hospice quite a little bit as well.
Yeah. So I started as a speech pathologist, was a traveler for some time, started my career in head and neck cancer and was actually working on a protocol to help rural healthcare better manage the symptoms of head and neck cancer. We weren't doing that well. And then COVID hit. And so I became a traveling therapist, moved across country, and then became a hospice executive director. So that's been an interesting experience to have. It's been surreal. It's been, I don't know. It's one of those things I never would have guessed for myself. I went to be a therapist to manage people, not to manage people, to partner with people. But it's been really cool to get to partner with everyone and really grow leaders that still have that same impact on people's lives in a really crucial period of their lives. And like you said, there's a lot of speech therapists that are a part of people's lives right before they pass because they're no longer able to eat, or they're kind of facing some of those harder struggles that they've been going through. And so it's been kind of a full circle career path that I never would have imagined for myself.
Well, bless you for the work that you're doing, because like in my dad's case, he could no longer eat. He could no longer swallow. He was not cognitively available. And so I asked, when he was in the ICU, and the doctor sat us down to talk to us, and I asked them, so tell me, because he'd had cancer surgery. So we were at a point where he was either going to, die from the cancer because they didn't get it all, or they were going to keep him with a feeding tube for the foreseeable future. And so I asked the doctors, and I said, so tell me, is he going to be able to watch TV and to understand what's happening on the TV? And they said, oh, no, probably not. And so he can't eat. So he's going to be in a bed. Let me get this straight. He's going to be in a bed. He doesn't know where he is or anything. He's going to be in pain, and you're going to put a feeding tube in him so that you can keep him alive, but he's not cognitively there. That's not the life that he would choose to live.
No, not many people would, and I think it's very surreal to get to be a part of those conversations with people when they meet those pivotal points in their lives. And a lot of times you've built trust with them to bridge that gap of conversation. I've been a part of those conversations, which can be brutal, because sometimes people aren't ready, or sometimes they're more like you, Kevin, where they're like, you know what, I'm ready to kind of transition into a different phase. And I think that what was so interesting when I interviewed for my most recent job, they were like, well, what does a speech therapist have to do with hospice? Like, what are you doing here? What's your why? And it's really interesting because there's a lot of parallels of like quality of life versus quantity, and I think as therapists, we are educated and trained to therapize people till, we can't anymore. And we would see it as a failure if we couldn't solve the world's problems, as if that was our responsibility, right? And so hospice is, I think, a very scary word for a lot of people, but honestly, it's comfort care. It's providing quality over quantity, and how do you want to spend those last days of your life? Do you want to be chasing an unattainable goal, or do you want to absorb the time you have left with your loved ones comfortably? And, I think I wouldn't be doing a justice if I didn't explain like what hospice is. It's my whole job, but yes, people think they come on hospice and they die right away. That's not the case. Like, ideally, we love people that come on 6 months, a year before that happens, not because no other reason than to build that trust with them, because it takes a huge level of trust in us to be able to guide families through a really difficult time. Not a lot of people, this is their first time and their only time dying, right? They've never done this before. So we do this for a living. And it's funny, but it's true. It's a sick sense of humor. But this is their first time and last time dying. And so to build that trust takes time, and to have those relationships take time. And so, yes, the clinical care that we provide is very important, pain management, but it's the social care that we provide, because we even have bereavement programs after the family member passes, that we still support that family after they're gone. And that's what people don't understand.
That's probably the most vital aspect of it, is the aftercare for the family, because let's face it, the guy who's passed on, he's gone, he's passed on, he's off doing other stuff. Yeah. It's the family that's still here, that they need to understand grief and how to deal with it, and all the aspects of what it's like when somebody passes away. And I got to commend you, because also you're working with a lot of people that at various stages of ability and learning about being a hospice care provider and taking care of them. That must be in itself both very rewarding and also very stressful.
Yeah. Very, it's good days and it's bad days, there's days that I could definitely have myself a moment, probably honestly more frequent than not. But I think when you can decontextualize it and realize it's not about you, it's not about me, they're mad, they're yelling at me, but it's not about me. It's the things we can't control. I'm just representing that at the moment. And I think, that's where being a speech pathologist and going to school to be that really taught me, like, it's not my job to assume that responsibility. It's not my job to fix it. It's my job to be present and be consistent. And that has been something that's been transformational throughout my entire life. Because if you know me personally, I love to find a problem. Like, I'm a problem solver. I love to partner with people. I love having those conversations. But it's hard when you have to take a step back and just let things be for a moment. And whether it's like taking the hits from the family that's grieving heavily, or, you know, from the facilities that don't understand hospice, or from my own staff that don't know how to handle the grief coming their way. But it's also an opportunity to build a lot of trust, you know, and actually make really positive impact on people's lives.
It must take a great deal of patience and
It'll make you laugh. Yeah, that's a good word for it.
patience, empathy, kindness, because everybody's going to come to you with all kinds of, you know, he's really mad that his wife has passed away, and he's blaming me for not, you know, I can only imagine. Well, I had a friend, he's passed now, so I can tell this story. His wife went into hospice, and she had a brain tumor, and she was in hospice for about 6 months. She had a slight recovery, and so they let her out of hospice, and so she went home. She went to the house that they shared together, and she took a nap, and he pulled out a gun and killed her. This is a true story.
That is not where I saw this going. Okay, yeah. Sorry for my look of surprise. It's not funny.
No, and in the you know, there's a whole backstory there. Obviously, there must be, and stuff. But that is the things that when she left hospice and then she went home, and then they found out that her husband had pulled out a gun and killed her, that must have been a horrible moment for the folks in hospice, because they care so deeply for people.
It takes, you know, the nurses that are on our team, we're not the same personality, to be honest. Like, I am not a nurse. Okay. And which is good, because I need that separation to do my job. But the level of compassion that they have to be able to be next to someone in those moments, I couldn't do it. And I always tell my team, like, I couldn't do this without you, your compassion. That same level of compassion can also result in lack of boundaries and a lot of emotions that make it really difficult to leave work at work and home at home, and make sure that there's some mental health, right? Because, I mean, I don't know how many, you're in these people's homes every day, you know, and like, I did home health as a speech therapist prior to coming to hospice. So I think it truly gave me just a different level of appreciation of what they do. And I think that understanding is what made me so effective, because I had a time in my life where I was visiting 2 or 3 speech therapy patients that I loved, and they all passed unexpectedly. And especially for me, they weren't on hospice. I wasn't trained in hospice. And I ended up taking a 6-month hiatus from speech because it just wrecked me. Because you don't understand, you're meeting people in their homes. It doesn't feel medical anymore. It feels like you're being invited into their life. And so of course you're going to experience the emotions that they would feel. Why wouldn't you? You know, and I think that was a harsh lesson for me, even as someone that is a deep feeler and a deep thinker and a very empathetic person, was I don't have to ride that roller coaster with them. I don't have to jump full in to do my job effectively. And that's something I try to work with my staff on. But I mean, sometimes I still do it too. I think it's just a part of being human, you know?
Well, exactly. And especially when they get attached to somebody who may be, and sure, they're going through pain and stuff, but there are people that will, like, I can only picture when it's time for me to go, if I have to go into hospice, my job is going to be to make that person laugh every day until I can't do that anymore. And make them endear themselves to me, which is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing, isn't it?
I think it's interesting because it's so surreal. It's not bad. And I mean, I don't think it's good or bad. I think that's what's weird about hospice is there's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong way to die. There's no right or wrong way to be human. I mean, there's a wrong way to approach people in certain scenarios. Of course, it definitely requires a certain level of emotional intelligence. I think it's just accepting everything for what it is. And it's actually a very spiritual and grounding experience to watch people come to that point in their life of it's truly acceptance and surrendering, because there's no other option at that point. And I think that's when real change starts to happen. And that change, like those stories that you kind of talk about, oh, I want to make my nurses laugh and have that connection. You should be that person, because that's why they do what they do. They love to have that part with you, and that's who they are to their core. But I think, my goal as an executive director in hospice is to take the fear out of hospice, to take the fear out of it, because when we start functioning out of fear, that's when that chaos starts to kind of sneak in.
Well, and in my brother's case, and he was in Eastern Washington, and he passed away, and he had hospice care, and what they found and what he found was, and you're exactly right, he was very upset that he had stage 4 lung cancer and it had metastasized, and that they told him that he was terminal, and he didn't want to accept it, didn't want to accept it until the last week of his life. And then it became, well, okay, here we go, kind of thing, and with the help of the hospice nurses and the folks who were there, made sure he had enough personal items and things that so we didn't have to worry about that, and treat him with dignity at the same time. That is such a valuable service.
It really is. And I think, it's interesting because I've had to decontextualize myself from hospice to be able to run the business, right? So I think it's very interesting because, yes, I manage a team and foster a culture that creates environments for people to be these caring people, but I do have to step back because I have to have that aerial view of where we're going and what we need and what team members do we have. So when I do tell people I work in hospice, it took me a long time to get used to the reaction of like, oh, that must be, and I was like, oh, you're right. Like I should probably, and it's not that, I understood the heaviness of it. I did. I think I just can't exist in that space every day and go to work and think that way. I have to look at the peace and the happiness that we get to provide. But I also think it offered me another level of emotional intelligence in my leadership of who do I want to be, and I've always wanted to be the calm in the storm. And so that's what I always tell my staff. I'm like, everything around us is chaos. We have to be the calm. And that doesn't mean we're perfect. It doesn't mean you're emotionless. It just means that we're consistent. If we're having a bad day, we're still consistent. And I think that's unique because I think we all want that in our lives daily. And it's just not, hospice is just like a microcosm of what we all go through all the time. And I feel like I'm rambling, but last year my grandma went on hospice and she passed on hospice. And that was a really interesting dynamic because then all of a sudden my life and my personal life weren't so different. And that was tricky because it made everything really real. And I think I kind of say taking the fear out of hospice, but also taking the fear out of leadership in hospice because you're like, oh gosh, like, what does this mean?
Well, and I can only tell you this, and I am virtually positive that all the people that work with you, because you are in a leadership role, appreciate the leadership that you bring to them and the things that you do for them. And you've written a book. Now, they might not always say that, but
I'm very blessed. So I had a previous team that I was very close with before I took this job. And then this job, I got to build a team together to be able to service multiple counties. It was a larger role, which was a challenge in itself, let me tell you. So it's weird because the book I wrote was a year ago at this point. And then, that's when I published it. So that was a different season of life. And so it's interesting rereading that book, which I've been doing recently for some projects I'm working on, and seeing how true some of it was, but also how much I've grown in this past year because I wasn't truly it takes time to kind of learn what this looks like and incorporating emotion with boundaries and yada, yada. We could go all day about it. So yeah, I wrote a second book and in the process of this season of my leadership, but it's by far one of the hardest things I've ever done, for sure. I mean, it is relentless. The stress with this sometimes, like, you don't run from, you just sit in it and pray to God you get through it, right? I don't know.
Well, you messaged me to say that you were going to be a little late,
Yeah.
which is totally fine. And it was because you had your fireman's hat on, putting out fire after fire after fire.
Yeah.
By the way, we need to take a quick break. We're talking with Emily Erstad, and we're going to talk about her book when we come back. It's not that deep. Well, the book is, but it's not that deep. That's the name of the book. So we're going to talk to her about that and the process of writing and all of that. Stay with us. This is just 45 seconds. Rochelle is going to be here as soon as the internet says she can be. And so we're just going to let it be. We'll be right back.
You became a real estate agent for freedom, success, and real momentum. So why are you still stuck waiting for closings to save you? I'm Ophir Adar, founder of Real Momentum, and I help agents like you become seven-figure earners. My first client that I coached, brand new agent, made $250,000 back in 2006. What's the secret? You feed your white wolf. That's the part of you that's bold and unstoppable and a closer and able to build rapport quickly. So click Get Listings at Real Momentum and let's unleash your real estate potential.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, and we're talking with Emily Erstad. And Emily, I got to tell you, you are just phenomenal. You're well educated. You are in charge of a bunch of people that are doing a bunch of really difficult things on a day-to-day basis. So there's lots of stress to go around for everybody, I would imagine, in the work that you do. But because of the book you've written and the type of person you are, whether they say it or not, I'm sure that they appreciate. Now, having said that, the former team that you were part of loved you to pieces. The new team, you're acclimating them to your way of doing things, and sometimes that can be a little hard to get the same results that you may have had before. Has that been your experience?
Yes and no. I mean, honestly, the team now, I've been in this position since December and we're doing really great. And I think at first if they listen to this, it was probably quite the culture shock. And now I think they see the vision and they're all really wonderful people. And I'm really proud of what we're coming together and building. So it's cool because we've got a really strong foundation at this point. In the next couple months, it'll be really cool to kind of solidify it and see where our momentum carries past us.
And you have got that vision, and you have got the strength and the tenacity to see it through and to make it happen, don't you?
You know, I should probably just have you on my speaker every day. You're making me feel great. I would like to think so. I was hired to have it. Yeah, no, I think I do. I mean, I feel pretty centered and, I don't always have it all figured out, but I'm dynamic enough to figure out whatever happens that comes my way. I usually have the means, right?
You can do it. You can do it. And I want to introduce Rochelle's. Apparently, her internet has cleaned up a little bit now. So, and that's a new background that we have for her. And she took that picture all by herself.
Yes, this is a Utah background in the mountains of Salt Lake City where I'm at. And hello, Emily. I'm very excited to be here.
Hi.
I did everything I could to make sure I had a strong connection to be here. And I remember the interview we did with you was just amazing. So I'm very happy that I got to come in, not towards the end of the show.
And it's awesome that you're here. Now, you've written a book. You've got it. Now, is the second book published yet, or is it being birthed as we speak?
It's written, it's printed, which means I'm in the final stages of it. And kind of looking at how I'm going to go about that, because my first book was self-published, just because I'm impatient and I like to get things done. But currently looking into publishers and hopefully finding the right fit to kind of go more through that publishing journey instead of self-publishing at this time. So it's ready. I just have to find the right opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that can take a little while because everybody's got their own agenda, and they might read it and say, "Nah, I don't think so." And so there is sometimes you don't. I've talked to authors that they did not want to go to the mailbox because they were afraid there was going to be another rejection letter in there.
It's a process. When I self-published, I did it, if I'm honest, I did it for me. I did it for me to prove I could do it, but then kind of got the vision after I published the book of who I wanted to be as a leader and an author and how I wanted to incorporate that throughout my life, right? And so when I wrote It's Not That Deep, that was kind of it for me. I thought, I just want to check this. It wasn't even checking a box. It was just a very personal thing that felt healing to me. And the joke of it's not that deep is it is that deep, right? Like it's supposed to be metaphorical. It's permission to say it's not that deep when you need a minute. Little did I know I would need that in this season of my life a year later, right? And so it was really cool to see the impact that it was having on my staff and people I was close to. But when my husband read the book, It's Not That Deep, he said, "That's really great and all, but like you're one of the deepest people I know." So when I was like, "Oh, yeah, you're right." So I wrote the next book, and that one's called In Too Deep. And that's kind of the prequel sequel. My vision is to kind of create a storyline of books that all talk about leadership and emotional intelligence, whether it be professional, personal, emotional growth, and that each of these books you can pick up and kind of mirror the stage of life that you're in right there. Because I think there's moments in my life where I was looking for that connection and I just couldn't find it. Because when you're a deep feeler, it's hard to put those feelings out there and not, absorb everything around you. So.
And congratulations. Rochelle, are you familiar with the term emotional intelligence?
Kevin, you did not just say that. It's crazy. Last night as I was falling asleep, I'm thinking, what is one value that is the most important to me in a relationship in my life? And that was the very first thing that came to my head. And then doing this with you is kind of cool too, because I remember you talked to me about spaces that feel like home. Mm-hmm. And to everybody who even hasn't had the best home growing up or the best experience of what that may mean, there's a feeling of what everybody creates would be the most safe and comfortable space that would feel like home. And I'm very curious as to where, like, how that kind of came into play with what you're doing and when you had that.
That's such a weird full circle moment, because it's been a minute since we've talked and I've done a lot in that time. I know you're so surprised.
It's okay.
Wow.
You are a do something kind of gal.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I really challenged myself to develop my vision because I knew what I was saying, but I wanted to write it down on paper. And so since I've talked to you guys, I actually got my website redone and I have an author mentor that I'm working with because I'm like, I want to do this right. And I want it to feel accessible. And I don't want it to feel like I'm telling people. I want it to be a two-part conversation, right? Or that reciprocity that I feel like we're lacking sometimes. And so how does that feel like home exist without that? I think it's very trendy to be like, if your workplace feels like a family, it's toxic run. And it's like, okay, yeah, no, there's probably an in-between here that we just haven't found yet. And so I think home, it's different for me. It's different for you. I can always, like, whenever I think of home, I think of the holidays and going home for Thanksgiving and like that same routine that you just looked forward to. And it felt like you could authentically be yourself, right? In places that you're not feeling like you have to mask, to me, what home feels like, a place that has pieces of you in it, but challenges you to be better. Because I think home, people always think of complacent spaces. And I don't want complacency. I want places that feel familiar enough that I feel stable, but leveling up and giving you opportunity to grow and be the next version of yourself. And I think that can ebb and flow day to day. There's days that, I moved to Arizona and I was from the Midwest and this didn't feel like home for a hot minute because there's no cactuses in Illinois or Indiana. We don't have those there, and we have grass and we don't have grass here. You're catching my drift. And so home didn't feel, this was not home to me. And it probably took me 3 or 4 years to get to that point. And that's when I decided this is not home. This is authenticity. This is who I am, and creating a space that I exist in, that I feel comfortable being me in. I think that's what I mean when I say home, but that comes with responsibility. That doesn't mean authentically reckless. That doesn't mean authentically emotionally charged and running at people. It means you're truly yourself and you're not having to put energy into the version of yourself you think people want, but you're who you are, so you can put that extra energy towards other people, right? Or your goals or your relationships or your work, like whatever that is. But I think when you can consolidate that, and it's almost like running an efficient system in your own life. I hate to bring my ops into this, but it's coming full circle. That's when you start really playing ball and starting to be able to do things that you never imagined you could do. And I think that's how I got here, right? Because I wouldn't have assumed I'd be on my second book and running a hospice at 30. Like that doesn't make sense to me. It still doesn't. Sometimes I sit in my backyard and I'm like, wait, this is my house? Okay, cool. All right, still here. It's just so surreal when you go through such change like that, you know?
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing. And isn't home, ladies, the place where you feel like you can wear floppy sweats and not put makeup on and be totally accepted by anybody and everybody who's there?
Yeah, I would say so. It's funny you mentioned that. I was interviewing for a new business office manager 2 weeks ago, and I was running behind from another emergency, and I didn't have makeup on. And it's gonna sound weird, but I hopped on the virtual interview, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. You just have to take me as I am. Like, this is it. And that was the first time I'd ever done that. And if my boss is listening, I promise she's the one I hired, so she was a good one, and I liked it. But that authenticity I created with her, where of course, like, there's a professionalism that exists, right? But there has to be a level of understanding for like human nature, right? Because I feel like you run so fast and people get so critical so quickly, it's exhausting. And I think for me, that's when burnout starts to kind of find its way into my life, is when I'm like trying too hard at too many things and I feel like I'm pushing a rock up a mountain 24/7. That's when I need to start really understanding what that definition of home looks like and what that system or process looks like for me to make life convenient when it can be, so that I can do the inconvenient things that my job frequently brings to my attention. So.
And Rochelle, we need to take a break. Would you like to take us there?
Sure, I'd love to. Talking with myself and Kevin McDonald and Emily Erstad. I have to ask you when we come back about that a little bit deeper, because I think we treat our home spaces like we do other places and vice versa. I just want to know what you think of that and your perception, and how you've been able to kind of separate the two and build boundaries that were healthy and worked for you, and places that were also good to engage both. So
Sure.
when we come back.
And we'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald and Rochelle. That's her. That's one right there. And that's such a great picture behind you, I got to say. Anyway, we're talking with Emily Erstad, and she's an author. She is a, shall we say, leadership dynamo who
I love it.
who is she is leading a bunch of people and hospice and doing all kinds of stuff, and it's remarkable. And you're so dang young. How'd you get so smart so early?
I don't know. I call it old soul. It's a gift and a curse. I think it's maybe a tortured soul. I'll go with that one.
And Rochelle had a question that she was in the middle of asking, and I so rudely interrupted. So, Rochelle,
You're
go
okay,
ahead.
Kevin. Emily, I that leads perfectly into the question I wanted to ask you. And first, I would say it's experience, because not everybody has the same experience. And so sometimes age isn't really the thing that matters most. But with the work in hospice specifically you do, and how you talk about building those boundaries and creating a safe space that is a home, but also you're doing that for people when you leave your house, how do you keep that boundary?
Oh, it ebbs and flows. It ebbs and flows. There's days that I have great boundaries, and then there's days I have terrible boundaries. And I think it's just giving myself grace when I can. And like I was kind of mentioning earlier, and what I tell my staff is, I'm like, this job is not convenient. Nothing about it's convenient. Your emotional state you're going to leave exhausted. There's days that this is the best job of your life, and there's days that you don't know if you can come back tomorrow. And that's just the honest truth of it. And I always say, make it so convenient for you that when it is inconvenient, you can rely on those times that it was easier. Because and it's interesting, I think I've kind of resonated that with across my whole life, right? And that's how I've been able to accomplish so many things, is it's like being really mindful and having good discernment of what's feeding your soul and what's giving you energy, and really focusing your attention on that versus the things that are driving you up the wall. I can give an example that might make it a little bit easier. My staff was just in a heavy time. We were growing really rapidly. Since we've talked last, we've grown a lot. And with growth comes change, and with change comes pressure, and yada, yada, yada. And the emotions that are behind that have been challenging to take this team through, right? And so I was having a lot of hard discussions on boundaries and getting my team aligned. And then I decided, I'm done having these discussions. Why don't we start a team shout out thread? And every time we have something negative, we have to say something positive. Like we have to, because with gratitude, fear can't exist, right? And so then it was working a little bit, except I was the only one shouting out my team. And I was like, well, this is really counterproductive because I'm doing all the work. So then I bribed them all with a $200 gift card. And I said, whoever shouts out the most, I'm going to put you all in a raffle at the end of the month, and you're going to get $200, and you're the employee of the month honorary. And that was super cool, because all of a sudden it really worked, and bribery does work. That is not the point of this podcast. You can bribe yourself, and you can make yourself do things you don't want to do with a good pair of cowboy boots. Convince me otherwise. The idea of that is you have to find what feeds your soul and what you're working towards. And it can't be this like long-term goal that's 5 years in the future of when I get here, I'll actually take care of myself. No. And that is me to a core. Like I will put myself aside and run myself into the ground to get something done because it's not meeting my timeline, which was never realistic in the first place. And I'm insane because here I am 30 doing what I'm doing when I should probably be 40 doing what I'm doing, right? So it gets you really great places if you can disregard yourself that way. Wouldn't recommend it. Your self-care is trash, and you have to go to the dentist and you hate it. Like that's what I just did before I got here. So, because you didn't go for a couple of years and you're anxious about it. I don't know if anybody's relating to this, but that's me. So I think there's a delicate balance that I have not achieved. There is no balance for everyone, but I do think you have to be flexible and ebb and flow, and it's all about mindset. If you look for more problems, you're going to find more problems. I tell my staff this all the time. If you look for solutions, you're going to find more solutions. There have been times I've exercised excellent boundaries and had a really great home life and a really great work life. And then there have been times as of recent where my husband and I have had to sit down and say, we haven't done a good job of this. We're both absorbed in our work. What are we doing? And I think that was a really hard discussion because I thought I was doing the right things and I wasn't. And he thought he was doing the right things and he wasn't. And so I think it's just being able to be so raw and honest that you're able to have those conversations, whether it be your partner, your coworkers, your friends, that trust that you build that. And I think taking the risk to build that trust and admitting when you can't, which is not fun. But then what are we doing in those moments that we can't? Are we being still? Are we offering solutions? I just think that clarity is where you're going to find, or at least start to negotiate what that balance looks like. That's going to fit that season of life that you're in. Does that make sense?
Completely. Yeah. Because I love how you mentioned that, when you gave them the reward, when they knew what the reward would be, then they pushed themselves to do it. And sometimes I think that's why we don't, because we're like, what's the reward going to be like? When is it going to come? Is it ever going to be there? Is it going to be worth it? And we've been talking about surrendering for a while. We had that happen in an interview where she mentioned surrendering. And one thing I say, Emily, I'd love to see what you think of it, is when you surrender, you actually gain full control. Does that make sense to you?
Oh God, yeah. I just wrote in one of my books that's like control is a complete illusion. It's so cute that we think we know. We're like, we're adorable. Like, we got this figured out, you know? And it's like, I find the more I think I have it in lock, the more life proves me wrong. And so there's just this, I always talk about protecting your peace. And I call it my knowing. It makes no freaking sense, but like, it's just your intuition, your gut, spiritual, whatever that is to you, where you just understand that you're going to get a lot further being comfortable with the fact that you probably don't know than putting an unnecessary amount of pressure on yourself that you do know and then being proved wrong because you never did know, even though you thought you knew. It's like a really sick form of inception. So it's like, if you just get really comfortable not knowing and then just ride the wave, life gets a little bit more exciting. It's very unpredictable. But I would say when you do surrender to that, which is what I'm focusing on right now, it tends to get harder when you start to fight yourself. You don't even realize you're fighting it because you're like so busy controlling something that you've never had control of in the first place. Like once again, back to the energy. Where are you putting your energy? Controlling something you can't control, or moving forward with the skills that you know that you have that will give you the bandwidth or the strength to encounter any challenge that comes your way.
You know, I learned that in the restaurant business, and I don't know why this happens this way, but you write a schedule because this is the normal pattern of business. And then for some reason, and I don't know, have you ever walked into a restaurant and you're like the first ones that are walking in, and then like 30 people walk in right behind you, and it's like all of a sudden everything is gone to crap because now everybody's trying to run around trying to fix stuff, and you had no control over it anyway because people come in at their leisure and when they want to. And if you take the attitude that I got to control this, you're going to be a very unhappy person, and you're going to leave the restaurant business fairly quickly because there is no control in any of that stuff.
And I think there's a level of peace that comes with knowing that you can't. And it's like, I always kind of say too, like, do you really want that responsibility to think that you can control the future? I don't. Like, I don't want that responsibility. So why not just let it flow? I think in hospice, like, we know what the end goal is. We don't really know where it's going or how we're going to get there, you know? And I think there is some clarity we do need as humans of where are we going? And I think that's where you can be intentional. You might have to be flexible in how you get there, which I have learned time and time again. But I've always said, like, if you think you've got it all figured out, you better check yourself real quick because life's about to humble you pretty hard. And I'm saying that from experience.
Yep. Right when you say that is when it teaches you. This morning, Kevin, too, I just had that happen on my way here. There was 2 routes I could have taken at the stop sign. I could have gone right, and I thought, well, there's an extra light. Maybe I'll go down this way. And it was just that split second thing that I heard, but I was like, no, I'll just go this way. And I just made that decision. And I'm going behind somebody who's going a 10 underneath the speed limit and trying to also keep my composure because I'm trying to be here. And it was like how you talked about, Emily, how you kind of create that buildup, like the momentum when you're looking for it. And when those things happen, I'm like, okay, but look for the good in this. And it'll completely flip the entire situation. Because if I had continued to feel what came up when that had happened to me and I was all of a sudden behind all the cars I was once in front of, it altered it back to kind of, it's like you're reminding yourself, nope, not that path, we're staying over here, you know, kind of thing. Because it'll send me the other way.
Too. I was speeding because I was running late. Oh my gosh, I just said that online. Well, yeah. I was running late, and this lovely, thank you, Lord Grandma, pulled out in front of me, and I'm like, oh, I'm about to lose it. And then I swear to you, 5 minutes later, a cop comes the opposite direction, and I'm like, this is your sign to slow down. You don't need to be all things to all people. Why do you have such high expectations for yourself, Emily? Like, and it's so crazy because I could have spent this whole day. I think I just yelled, so sorry. But it's that serious, guys. Listen up. It's so crazy because I push myself and push. And I think this is the high achievers. And you might not be this person, but I think there's still something to learn. Like, I push and push and push till there is no gas left in the tank. And I am so disappointed and pissed and shameful when I don't hit the goals that I don't even know if I really had in the first place. Like, I'm mad just because I didn't get 5 things off of my 7-thing checklist done. Why does it matter? Like, why would I get guilty? Like, no, but seriously, I'm 5 minutes late to this meeting and I'm like guilting myself over it. like having a panic attack when I still showed up. We're still doing the right things. Like I'm still here doing the best I can with what I had in that moment. And I am in a season of life right now where I'm constantly being reminded that it is not my timeline, but the effects will be the same, if not better, if I just give intentional space for things to exist.
And there's a segment of our audience that is saying to themselves, he's going to say it again. He's going to say it again. And that would be the gospel according to Paul McCartney. Just let it be.
Yeah. Life has a funny way of forcing me into those seasons, and it always makes me so dang mad. I'm like, why do I have to slow down right now? I'm furious. And it's like, I know that it's that time. So this year, I knew it was coming. I could feel it. I could feel the chapter, the transition, whatever. And I'm like, okay, this time you're not going to fight it. You're going to embrace it and learn, because rest is productive, and your worth is not defined by the checks that the check marks that you make every day and your whatever, the whole thing. And I put my fall decorations up really early because I'm like, fall to me feels like a calm down, enjoy the moment. It didn't work.
You're trying to rush it.
Yeah, I'm having myself a week and it's only Monday, but the thought was there, so that's improvement.
Yeah.
And Emily, I have to tell you, I have a driven older sister. She's driven her entire life, and she's driven me crazy for a good portion of it. But she's a driven person, and she was one of those people that could. She was working for Nordstrom, and she had 2 reports working for her, and they needed to save some money. And they said, "Oh, Karen's tough; she can do it." And her name happens to be Karen, which is kind of unfortunate, but she's tough. She can do it. Let's get rid of one. We'll reduce her staff by 1, and she'll just pick up the well, she did. And so she was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. She was working 45 hours there. She'd go home and work an additional 5 or 6 hours at night. And now she's had 15 surgeries when she's 73 years old. So this is a notice to everyone. Take care of yourself when you're young, because when you're old, all this stuff just kind of happens. And if you haven't taken care of yourself, those things will happen. So that's my word to the wise. And by the way, you were stressing because you were 5 minutes late, and it didn't matter a bit. We're still here. We're having a great conversation.
Well, and it was just that reminder of me. For me, same thing, Emily, just slow down, because I heard it and I was like, nah, I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah. I'm like, I forgot how enjoyable you people are, because for a minute there, I was really like going to throw myself a fit in the car. I was like, I can't believe it. I'm like, I need to learn.
And I've come to learn in my brief time on this planet that let it go. It doesn't matter. It's going to be fine. And if it's not fine, it's not your problem. You can't handle or you can't solve everything. It's if somebody wants to be a pill, they used to say that he's a pill. Have you ever heard that, Rochelle?
No, but I'm going to start using it again. It's coming back.
we need to take
first. This is where the trend starts right now.
Exactly.
Right now.
We're talking with Emily Erstad, and I want you to listen to this, Emily, because this is a bit of a microcosm of my life and how I believe that we could all live a little bit, I don't know, kinder. The strength of staying kind from your friends at Positive Talk Radio. Kindness is not weakness. It takes real strength to stay kind in a world that often rewards anger, ego, and control. Being kind means choosing to act from your values, not your wounds. It means showing grace even when no one's watching. But kindness doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean letting people take advantage of your time, your energy, or your peace. You can be kind and still say no. You have a soft heart with firm boundaries. The strongest people I know are the ones who choose compassion without losing themselves. They've been hurt. They've been tested. And still, they choose to love and lead and to lift others anyway. Kindness is not about pleasing everybody. It's about honoring who you are and how you treat others, even when it's hard. So stay kind, stay human, and stay strong. And always remember this: be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got. And welcome back to Positive Talk. Rochelle's here. My name is Kevin McDonald, and Emily Erstad is here. And I got to tell you, you've written the book. It isn't that deep. And that commercial is a lot deeper than that, I think.
Yeah. So when I wrote It's Not That Deep, I was in a place where I felt like I kind of had some understanding of where I was in that space of life. And that was probably one of the first times I really took a moment to be like, wow, like it really isn't that deep. And when I say it's not that deep, it doesn't mean that life isn't complex. I think I'd be very naive to say that, especially if you're gathering from this conversation. I overthink. I wouldn't say overthink. That's even the wrong term. I think about everything very deeply because I think there's a lot to learn from everything we go through, right? And I love gaining perspective. And my biggest fear is to miss an opportunity or potential because of being so focused on myself or the wrong things, putting my energy in the wrong spaces. And so It's Not That Deep was my first attempt of literally just assigning language that resonated with our generation or the time space that we're in of it's okay to take a step back. It's okay to not jump on that roller coaster everyone's jumping on. And, sometimes your life has a different season than anybody else's, but comparison is the thief of joy, right? And just talking about things that we've all talked about. I mean, what I'm saying it probably isn't new, but it's a way that I feel like resonates with just the enlightenment and the change that we're experiencing in society today. And so I wrote It's Not That Deep, self-published it, and really wanted it to be used as a tool. Sorry, I was looking at my book. To give people strategies, right? Strategies on how to use emotional intelligence. I feel like we talk about it a lot, but we don't talk about how to develop it or like what's the next step. And so that's where I thought I was kind of filling this gap that I was seeing in self-help books because I do read a lot. But I also wanted to approach it with like a really raw, poetic, like it is messy and it's okay to be messy as long as we use it and learn from it to move forward.
Yeah.
So.
Rochelle?
Yeah, 100%, especially because how you talk about kind of creating that. Did writing the book help you get through some of the things that made you initially have to step back and pause? Once you wrote the book, you could move forward from that. Did it kind of help that?
That's the funny part is you can write about it and then you still have to live it. That's the joke,
Yep.
right? Like
Yeah, it's still
this
there.
doesn't excuse the life experience I have to go through. So when I published the book, was like, man, I've really got this figured out. I'm so proud of myself. And then I went and lived this past year of life and I don't have it figured out. That's what I'm talking about, like the humbling experience. Yeah, you can write about it and it's still going to happen to you, unfortunately. So that was, right now I'm actually rereading it because I'm trying to re-edit it, and I'm going to add a bonus chapter in it called Return to the Surface, I think, or something like, because get it, it's not that deep, surface, whatever. And I was reading it and there was a lot of truth to it. But if I'm really honest, I also felt like some of the things I said, I'm like, well, this is kind of repetitive, monotonous, and I don't know if I like how I wrote this and did this, right? Yeah. And the reason I'm redoing that is because I'm hopefully finding a publisher and like kind of wanting to bring this journey to whatever the heck it is. I don't even have a word.
Fruition.
That's the word, sure. Except I don't think that's the right word because I think we're still on a wild ride. But when I wrote the book, I felt like it was tools that I had used and good reminders of like perfectionism is one of those chapters. I beat myself up, or respecting the timing, or choosing the company you keep. Like these were some of the things that I wrote about, and I went at it very poetically. I was just like really honest and raw with who I was at that moment, and then talking about how those lessons I learned resonated with that chapter. And then I tried to close each chapter out with like a strategy of what I felt worked for me. I've talked a lot about vulnerability and transparency and how we can only build trust with vulnerability. But if I'm honest, I hate being vulnerable. Yet here I am on podcast telling you everything about myself. So, but it's actually become one of my strengths, which is crazy because I never would have thought that I could get on here and tell you all my deepest, these aren't my deepest thoughts. I won't share those here, but read the books if you really, the next book you might want to read. I'm kidding. But that's hilarious. But no, I think I know a lot, but I don't know it all. And I think that's that's the vulnerable journey I'm taking now is like, I since we've talked, I've done the website and I'm starting a blog and a newsletter. And I think it's about the journey, right? Like it's not about this book. It's about the moments in between the books. And so that's why I wanted to do the series and do all these pieces because I don't have it figured out and it's not that deep, but it also is deep. And I don't think it's not that clean cut. And I would be lying if I said that book would make it clean cut for you. I will say it's a moment I reflect on, and it gives me a lot of clarity in how to approach things in the future. And I have had a lot of feedback from the people that read it that are like, it gave me a breath of fresh air. Like, it made me feel like I was coming up from deep water, because I don't think we talk about it enough. I think we talk about emotional intelligence. We don't talk about existing with it, or how to move past it, or how to use it to level up. And I think that was my intention with writing it.
Yeah. Yeah, may I?
I'm done now. Somebody else's turn.
No, I was just going to say, well, see, we both we're getting to know each other pretty well, and so we were going to make an astute comment all at the same time. And Rochelle, you need to continue, but I was just going to say, our lives are like watching the end of a movie and not watching the first 3/4 of it, because you know the outcome, but you don't get a sense of why it is an important thing. Again, you need to watch the entire story develop so that the outcome makes a great deal of sense. Does that make any sense at all to anybody?
I think it's poetic, and you should write a book.
Yeah, Kevin, you write a book. You tell everybody else to write a book. Maybe you should write a book. But too, Emily, what you said was so powerful too, because in everybody's view, they've kind of got something different going on. But we start to learn things, and then this happened to me recently. You could probably relate, where it's just like, okay, I've learned so much, but incorporating that and making it into reality is like a whole different ball game. That's what that journey is, because you can sit and learn and learn and learn and learn and learn. Even if you lay in your bed all day, you're probably going to learn one thing. But when you learn an excessive amount of things, it is so important at that moment to take a step back and then intertwine all those things with your current life, because I was definitely one of the people that I was just like, well, I'm going to do all of this, and then it's going to be that. Like, just you wait, you watch. It's going to take 48 hours, maybe, and then it's this huge, long journey of, oh, I really have no idea of anything that I know, but also to give myself the grace of like, whatever you've learned can help you to this point forward. So we're running out of time, which is horrible. And yes, come back because you have to. But before we go, just remind everybody where to find your book and contact you and learn from your leadership, and anything else you'd like to leave us with as knowledge for our audience.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. You guys seriously brighten my day every time. I hope we stay in contact. We will stay in contact, because I'm so excited.
Thank you for changing that.
Yeah, did you like that talk?
I did.
That was funny too. Wait, but if you want to get a hold of me, eepublications.com is my website. It has my Instagram linked on there, my LinkedIn. You can buy my book. It's on Amazon, so if you search It's Not That Deep, it will come up. But if you go to my website, it's all there. I'm actually working on a page to link all my podcasts that I've been on too. So it's just a good way, a one-stop shop, right? And honestly, about the book, if you find yourself as either an overthinker or someone that feels like they're running into a brick wall and just stuck or uninspired, or, not feeling that connection, or just needs a minute, I would totally recommend It's Not That Deep to you, because like she said, I think it's reaching a point of acceptance where you're okay with where you're at now. There's always opportunity. Time's not running out. And embracing that, and giving yourself a moment to reflect where you're at, take that pause and gear up for that next season of life. And if you're looking for tools to increase your emotional intelligence or whatever that might be, or even just learn about it, I think you'd really enjoy the book. And I would really enjoy if you read it and connected with me, because that's why I did it, was to connect with you guys and learn more about the people around me and how I can make a positive impact.
Now, you've been doing a lot of podcasts recently. Now, I know we're not very good, and there's some that are really good. So tell us, well, we're pretty good, aren't we?
I think you're really good. Why would you talk so poorly of yourself like that? That's hilarious. I thought didn't you just tell me to reword? I'm just saying, no, you guys.
Well, yeah, I did. No.
The point is, this podcast will be linked on the page.
Yay!
So that was the point of that, not the other way. I don't know where you were going with that.
Actually, I was fishing for compliments because I'm just that shallow.
Well, you could have just asked. You didn't have to do that. Jeez.
Self-awareness is key.
And by the way, Emily, you are just phenomenal, and I wish you lots of luck. And boy, can you think what? And this goes for both of you. I've been on the other side for a while. I know I'm not dead. I'm just older now, and I've been around for a while. Oh, Lordy, if I could have been 26 and 30 and know what you guys know and what's going to happen for you and over the next 30 years. Goodness gracious, you guys are going to be powerhouses.
Well, thanks. Please manifest that for us.
Already feels like it, so might as well roll with it.
Yeah, let's go.
Exactly. And by the way, Brachelle, you haven't seen this yet. We have a new closing. That I'm going to play right now. And Emily Erstad, go to her website again, which is
eepublications.com.
eepublications.com. And thank you so much. You have to come back. You're just delightful.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Well, we think.
Or not. You want me to hang around.
It will work.
Thank you for being part of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where stories inspire and voices remind us of what truly matters. May today's conversation give you hope, courage, and a reason to keep moving forward. And just remember, till next time, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.